Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the Westfield Leader, advertised on January 9, 2014. Notification was sent to the Star Ledger and prominently posted on the Municipal Public Bulletin Board and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk, informing the public of the time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. At this time, I would like to welcome all of you to our workshop meeting and to remind everyone to please silence their communication devices. Please refrain from texting during the meeting as it is distracting to those around you. We'll get started. You're up first, Mr. Borriello.
Good evening, Mayor. How are you?
Just peachy, how are you?
Good. Just a couple of things. I've met down with a contractor down on the athletic complex relative to the fencing. We're working on getting a proposal for that. I also was able to finally contact someone with respect to the, I think someone brought up the gas service across the street that has not been restored yet with brick pavers. I think I finally got somebody I could talk to that will make sure that gets done.
Okay. Does anybody have anything for Mr. Borriello this evening?
Mayor, I just have one item. Don, with the St. Anne's project that's going on, I don't know if you've popped by there at all, but if you, maybe you could check it out just to see if the contractor is cleaning as they go, as they should. I know that, you know, with any construction, of course, there becomes more dirt on the street and so forth, and with the rec complex, we were very cognizant of that, so perhaps if you could just swing by at some point and see if the contractor's doing what they should on their part, and then if there's,
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Violation. Warned. That's a violation.
that's all I have.
It's like the marriage.
I did show you that, right? Just to let the, that's actually Victor.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll let him know.
all right, thanks, Councilman.
I did forward an email I received to the chief as well, because they had been on top of that as far as the road, the dirt.
And I assume it's the entrance and exit on Third?
Mm-hmm. Mainly
It's pretty much all over, like all
Really?
around it, yeah, I mean, you know, wherever they pull
Yeah.
out a vehicle or something.
John, thank you. That was me who brought up the pavers across the street.
Okay.
So thank you for following up on that. And I did have one more thing. On South Avenue, the sidewalk or the street between the sidewalk, the area between the sidewalk and the street, right across the street from Crunch, or right in the area of Crunch, is all torn up. I don't know if that's the water company or the electric company that did something there by the pole. And it's been torn up for a while. It hasn't
Okay.
been fixed.
Where's Crunch?
Crunch Gym, the
Well,
Garwood
former
Garwood
Walgreens.
Mall, it's the
Past
parking
Walgreens,
lot in front of the
former
Garwood
Walgreens.
Mall. The old Walgreens.
Okay. All right. So it's in front of the Garwood Mall.
Mm-hmm. There's a pole there, and that area, it's, the blacktop, and the sidewalk and some dirt. It's been torn up for a while. It hasn't been.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Don, that's actually public service, they said it's all,
Is that what
Okay.
it was?
so.
I'll see if I can find a contact there.
I have one.
Okay.
Okay. Nothing else for Mr. Renaud? Mr. Borriello, rather? I'll move on to Mr. Renaud.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the only thing right now is we have the ordinance tonight for public hearing and second reading, ordinance 14-16. Other than that, I would like to wish everyone happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I also want to say goodbye to you, Mayor. I've enjoyed the last few years and wish you well.
Thank you. Wish you and your family
Thank you.
some Patty Murray works.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone have anything for Mr. Renaud? No? Ms. Ariana, do you have anything over there in your corner of the world?
No, I do not, Mayor, thank you.
Any unfinished business? How about new business? All right, we're gonna move into comments or matters for discussion from members of the council. Council President Tarantino?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to report on the parking committee. Finally, you've been hearing me talk about that for a while, so I'm ready. As everyone knows, you created a parking committee several months ago, and this was in response to the many complaints that council has received about commuter parking on the residential streets and the growing parking problem around the borough. The committee you initially put together consists of Councilman Petrozelli, Sergeant Morelli, Kathy Velagio, Bob Ehrenbeck, and myself. And I also asked Officer Klein Sorgan and Chief Underhill to attend our meetings. We met several times over the last few months to discuss and brainstorm solutions. Officer Klein Sorgan conducted a parking study during the months of June to August, and I reviewed the report a few months ago with council, and I have a copy here if anyone would like to review that, the results. The overall conclusion of the report was that a large number of vehicles being parked in certain specific areas are due to non-resident commuters who are able to park legally for free all day within close proximity of their chosen preference of mass transit. This, of course, is taking up parking on the streets for residents to park in front of their own homes. We as a committee believe that we owe it to our residents to clear the streets of commuters taking up these prime parking spots. As a result, this committee will be recommending a revision to Article 14, Chapter 21, residential preferential permit parking, to council to include the streets on the attached handout. And I will be giving you two handouts here. I'm going to give you a map and a list of streets. I just want to hear from Mr. Renaud if just like that. So I'm ready to go this way. There. Now I'll walk it over. And then I have the street lights. There you go. Sorry, I have more. Okay, so. Where was I? So, those are the, those are the proposed changes that we will be making to that ordinance. We are aggressive with the streets we are recommending because we didn't want to create a spillover effect. If we closed off Second Avenue, we were afraid that we would just be moving the problem over to Third Avenue, and the same would be true for the other streets on the south side of town. We did not review the ordinance in its entirety to determine if any other changes needed to be made. I recommend this task be given to Laws and License for review if council chooses to accept the committee's recommendation. So if council chooses to accept our recommendations, this should pose the question, what happens to the commuters' cars? As you know, we are striving to become a transit village. We are encouraging commuters to take our trains and buses. We have been petitioning New Jersey Transit to give us more train stops during the peak hours, and we were told that one way of getting this was to provide commuter parking. Recently, we created 5 commuter parking spaces at Kennedy Plaza, and they have all been purchased. If we displace these commuters, we need to give them a place to park. I've been in communication with several landowners in town with parking lots that are willing to lease us spaces for commuter parking. I've been able to negotiate approximately 35 spaces in 3 different lots. We would lease these spaces from them and then rent the spots out to commuters. Mr. Renaud, of course, is making sure that everything is above board. He's been involved in this process. We would generate revenue from leasing these spots, but it's not going to be significant. The point of doing this is to satisfy the residents by clearing the streets of commuters and also providing a service to the commuters by offering them legal parking. We can notify New Jersey Transit of this, and hopefully down the line we'll get more spots, more train stops during peak hours. We are hoping this is a win-win for Garwood. And I'd also like to mention one more thing. If the council chooses to take this recommendation, we would like to notify the residents affected on these streets that we've listed here by mail. to attend council meetings to let them know of the proposed ordinance changes before we make these ordinance changes, first and second reading, to give them a chance to have their opinions heard by council before the ordinances are adopted. So, that's what the committee's been doing all these months.
Anybody have any questions or anything else?
Yeah, I do actually. Residential preferred parking, what does that mean exactly when you say preferred parking?
That's the title of, we have an ordinance, the one I read. That's the title of that ordinance. What it would mean is that there's hours that you would have, the street would be closed off to non-residents unless you have a permit to park there.
Okay.
So you live on that street, you register, you have 3 cars, you register with the police department, you get stickers for those 3 cars to park on that street. However, right now, I think the ordinance says up to 3 cars, and if you have more than 3 cars, you have to just let them know. But we can revise the ordinance, we can look at it. That's something to go, as I'm recommending to Laws and License, to review the ordinance.
Okay, so it's during those hours then, all right. Okay.
Because right now, Winslow, and Anchor already have this. So our committee's proposing to add all these streets.
And the other thing that I have a question for, maybe for Captain Stuff, or if it came up during the committee meetings. Whenever I look at ordinances like this, the first question I have is enforceability. Are the police confident that they can enforce something like this? Because
Do our best with it.
okay, because I mean, it's nice for us to write words on a piece of paper, but when it comes down to it, if
Well,
you're not able.
if it's similar to Winslow, Anchor, and Willow, it's a 2-hour limit. So it's for the people that are parking all day, so if the car parks all day, it's easy to pick out for enforcement.
And the chief was involved in this, in all these meetings, so he knows, he's part of this recommendation, so he's aware of what his police department can enforce and commit to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Councilman, you intrigued me with the other sites for parking. Where would they be?
Well, we're still negotiating these spots. I mean, I don't know if I want to,
I have 3 properties, potential 35 spaces.
we didn't want to close off the streets to commuters and then not give them somewhere to go.
That was the whole purpose of it is, you know, if we're gonna do this, then we need a place for these people to go to. You know, we just can't shoo them away, so. I just think it's a win-win, you know, for the commuter as well as the people who live on the streets and have to deal with it. You know, better for the resident of Garwood, but at least, you know, at least the commuter has a place to go.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's important to look at it from both sides, the commuter side as well as the residents. Question, do you foresee the spaces becoming available for the commuters at the same time this permanent parking goes through? Is that the goal?
We would do it hand in hand. We talked about
Good.
what we would do is once the ordinance goes into effect, we would have already negotiated these parking spaces. And we would, we talked about putting notices on the cars. We know who the commuters are, because of the parking study. So we would put notices on their cars and let them know that this ordinance is going into effect on so-and-so date. And we can let them know, we have these spots to
Offer.
you know, rent these, whatever the right word would be. So contact Borough Hall, because as of, you know, this date, you will not be able to park here any longer, but you can lease this spot.
Like I said, I'm definitely in favor of taking care of both of these issues hand in hand. And so it sounds like the next step would be for next year's Laws and License Committee to sort of finish this with the ordinance and also with the negotiating,
Right,
I'm assuming? Okay.
right.
And just be prepared, because the issue is not just the availability, but it's the cost. So I would think that in these fringe areas outside that zone, you're gonna have some people who are gonna say, I'll just park a couple blocks away and save the money. So just be prepared for that.
Well, I think we covered enough of
Pretty
the
well.
area to deter people to continue to go further and walk. I mean, if they do that,
Well,
I'm just saying you might be surprised.
listen, I do remember the chief saying at one point that that a commuter would walk up to a mile to get to a train station.
It's going to get a little bit.
So if we got to permit the whole town, then so be it, but at least this is helping the problem
No,
where it is right now.
Absolutely, I'm just saying, just be prepared for that, because again, it's like squeezing a balloon. I mean, I was here years ago when we did this with the other streets, and then the people for Second Avenue started coming in. So again, just, I think that this is a very plausible solution to that problem. Just don't be surprised if you see people from the adjacent streets now come back and say, oh, guess what, now that could be.
Well, and that's why also we want to invite the residents in and discuss it and then, talk to some and say, well, you're not covering my street. Or some may say, you're going too far with it, you don't have to cover my street. Or they may think, you're not doing Fifth Avenue, we want you to do Fifth Avenue. So,
We can keep an open mind
right,
to that.
we'll listen
Right.
to them.
Right.
Uh-uh.
Well, I'll be honest, I know a Cranford resident who lives on Brookside, and they take the bus out front of Santander Bank, so they definitely, will walk it, so. It's just something, I think this is definitely a very, very good start, and like the council president said, let's see what the reaction is by hopefully getting a lot of people in here to speak their mind, whether they like the permit parking on their street, would like their street included, if they don't like it, and so on, so.
The other side of the coin is that if you don't provide someplace for these folks to go, and they start parking in their hometowns of Cranford and Westfield, then you're not gonna be able to secure additional trains from
Well,
future
that's-
stops,
Definitely.
That's that third piece of the
Yeah.
puzzle there, is that if we do secure 35 parking spaces, we can make that phone call to NJ Transit and say, we have 3 parking now.
In addition to the 5 we just set up, so really
Right.
we're, and then ShopRite, so technically we're over 40.
Right.
So that's some serious headway, I would think.
I agree.
The other factor is with cost. I wasn't on the parking committee, obviously, but being on laws and license, we did look into what Cranford and Westfield charge, and I think that will definitely be something that laws and license committee next year needs to look at to make sure that we're still a good deal for that person, that they're not opting to just stay in Cranford or stay in Westfield, that they actually do see value in commuting from Garwood.
I would like to refer this on to laws and license at this point, because I don't want it to get lost in the fade off, you work too hard for things to kind of fade off into the distance and get, lost. So, at this point, it's in the hands of laws and license, and whoever steps in laws and license would, I think. All right? And thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Yeah, really. Okay. Councilman Martin is away. Councilman Matthew, do you have anything for discussion?
Yeah, just one question, since it is the last meeting of the year, did anything ever come out from that protocol committee? Was there anything that was decided from that? Because I guess either it's tonight or it's done, right?
Oh, you're talking about what we were discussing as far as office procedures, et cetera?
Yeah.
It kind of got, because of some other issues, it was kind of backburnered, and that would be something that I did discuss with Mayor-elect Lombardo, and he'll pick up the ball and go forward with that.
That's all my question.
Councilman Mearstad?
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilman Pedichelli?
Yes, I just, instead of, I just wanted everyone to know that, the rec director, has sent in a letter that, December 31st would be her last day here. So recreation will be looking for a new rec director. So I just wanted to let everybody be aware of it.
Mayor, question, so how are we going to start January 1 then? How are we gonna operate?
The rec commission will be taking over her responsibilities.
Okay.
So,
And I assume then, Tina, we either send out some type of request, or how are we gonna do this?
Well,
The
that's
mayor and
the-
council and administrator does not handle hiring the recreation director, the commission
The
does.
commission itself will.
If the commission asks me for assistance, I will assist them, but I have not done that.
All right, thank you very much.
All thing is a commission responsibility. All right, Councilwoman Tedisco.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items. guess that Councilman Nearstead gave us all a present, but I didn't, sorry, not to be a Grinch. First, I have to say that I spoke with our representative to the Rawley Valley Sewage Authority, Steve Greet, and I wanted to update the council on our conversation regarding the increasing cost expected next year in Garwood's payment to the RBSA. I invited him actually here to speak with us, but he couldn't make it, so he asked me to just pass along the message. Basically, Garwood is presently looking at a 17% increase, which works out to about $90,000. It would be a big hit. That translates to an increase of more than $45 in taxes for the average home in Garwood next year, an increase of 45 at least. Representative Greet expressed his disappointment at the RVSA budget meeting and voted no to the proposed budget, which still passed 7-2 as 2 other municipalities out of the 11 total were absent, so only 9 were voting. That night, he stated that Garwood is the smallest of the 11 member municipalities and has an insignificant flow increase or decrease, yet is receiving an increase supposedly due to an increase in biosolids. However, Garwood has not had a significant increase in population or business expansion in the last 5 years. In terms of the 5-year moving average, a low 1.59% from 2009 is being dropped out of the 5-year moving average and being replaced with the 3.43%. This comes at a time when the RBSA is realizing a budget decrease over 2014. He said that although he commends the authority for holding costs down and seeking new sources of revenue, there appears to be a significant flaw in how the individual municipalities are assessed. Although the budget passed, the individual member municipalities' budget allocations have not actually been finalized yet, so there is still hope that Garwood may see some relief. Representative Greet, like all of us, are not happy with the news, but he is continuing to work with the director, Jim Meehan, on seeking relief for Garwood, so we will learn whether or not we will see this increase go down at all in the next couple of months or so. So if I hear from him or if anybody else does, I'm sure, we'll bring it to the council's attention. So obviously, that's not a good situation to be in. Next year's finance committee is looking at being in the hole basically $45 before they've even begun or looked at other things that seem to go up each year. So it's a tough situation, but on the bright side, it may not be the end-all be-all. We still have a couple months to see if the RBSA will make some changes that will result in a lower impact to Garwood taxpayers. And then the second item I have, the positive news. So about a month ago, we received an email from the New Jersey Foundation for Open Government. They checked the websites of 21 municipalities in Union County to see who had the most up-to-date record of the meeting minutes, and Garwood came in first place out of all 21 towns. So this is very positive recognition for our borough in terms of keeping citizens informed and having a transparent government. I would like to thank our borough administrator and clerk, Ms. Ariema, in her part of the world, as the mayor says, for all her work in making sure the minutes are written and posted in a timely manner. So I think that's very positive for Garwood, and thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's move into public comment. If there is anyone in the audience that wishes to address mayor and council, please step to the microphone, sign in, state your full name and address, and we do request that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Did you get a haircut?
Maybe I did, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor Corchacci, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow. Needed to be said. Speaking for Ann Leonard, actually, and I don't know if I should put her name down also, but she left town, sadly, Saturday. But before she left, she actually told me to ask this question to the parking committee. She said, have you thought about the property behind the Hess station? Because we do own some property behind there, and I think the Petra brothers may own a piece or something. But anyway, have you considered it or talked about it?
We did talk about it, and off the top of my head, I don't remember why it was not a viable location.
Because we don't own enough to make a parking lot.
Yeah.
But there
It's
is
very small, it's a very small parcel. That entire area behind, you might think we own the whole area behind that.
Yeah, I know you own a
We
smaller.
don't, it's a small.
Oh, you're talking about private ownership, you know, so that could be another piece of the puzzle, along with the borough owned property.
Okay.
Maybe, I know Don, our borough engineer, he talked at length at one time about BODs and the RVSA. I guess liquids is made of three portions, was that right, Don? Yeah, BODs was one of them, and you elaborated on it, and you went in one ear and out the other ear, but, I mean, I do remember a little bit. But anyway, you know, this comes as a shock, like your report was. It's going up 17%, yet the budget is going down, yet our population has stayed the same, but it obviously is a problem with our BODs possibly. But could Don, through you, Mayor, could Don explain something about BODs and the possibility of why it would go up even though everything stays the same? If you do have knowledge, but, you know, just your
You
expertise.
can explain why it would go up before you start. I mean, there's no reason that I can see that the borough's flow should change by 17%. I don't understand it. There's BODs, suspended solids, or flow, any one of those three items, I can't explain to you. I don't attend the meetings, so I have no idea what the numbers are.
What are BODs?
Biological oxygen. It's a part of the chemistry of sewage. It's a measure of how much oxygen it takes, because obviously that is needed for the process of sewage decomposition. So if you put in toxics that destroy the BODs, then you're going to pay for it. We had that problem, we had a paper mill. But you know, we've got typical residential flow, and there's no industrial flow, and that's usually what would affect BODs. We have almost no industrial flow, so there's no reason why our BOD should be any higher than anybody else's.
All right, and in addition, the committee report was about a 5-year rolling average. That affected it somehow? I know you
Yes.
mentioned that.
I would say I mean, I'm really no expert with RVSA, very difficult, tough, what do you call it, topic there. BODs, I didn't really know what that was, I'll admit that. But basically, it seems like the main cause of our increase is this 5-year rolling average. But the other side to that is last year when Mr. Greet came here and we talked to him at length, and Mr. Renaud and Mr. Goriel had a lot of information about this subject and sharing it with him. And Councilman Petrozelli even brought up, you know, is there a way we can check these meters to make sure they're true? The RVSA has their meters checked regularly, and they say, you know, they say it's right, but obviously there's no real check on our part. But given that conversation last year, Mr. Greet did not seem to think, even with the rolling average, that we would see any tremendous increase this year, or rather next year in 2015. So this seems to have come as a shock to him, this amount of increase especially. So it seems like he's definitely fighting for us down at the RVSA, which is positive. You know, he is in there working for us to advocate and make sure that we get the absolute, you know, best deal we can. So,
He's the chairman, the president, right?
I just want to mention one thing, and I'll stop your clock for 1 second. Did he have anything to say about them retesting those meters? Because that was one thing that he brought up with me originally when he called me.
yes,
Last month.
yep, that was included. They did retest them, but I don't recall the result of that.
Obviously, you can call and say, because there's a problem with the meters.
Right, exactly, so.
You know? All right, thank you. Sorry, anything?
No, that's all right, but just a couple quick items. But, you know, luckily, the new mayor coming in, you know, he's well versed with the RVSA, so hopefully between him and Steve Reed, maybe, you know, they can stay on top of it and try to ameliorate whatever the situation is. I mean, we saw a large increase last year also.
Right.
I did not with the large increase. Yeah, I'd like to see our RVSA rep come in more often to explain the RVSA, because that's a large portion of our tax bill, is the sewage cost. And just as another item, just these stickers. Actually, when the first time came out for Willow Avenue stickers, and I forgot whatever year it was, I actually did put a sticker on my back window of my Lincoln, and the sticker is still there, so I mean, they hold pretty well, from whatever year it was. It had to be like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, so thank you very much.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Right.
Mayor, I just wanted to add to that, from what I recall from that conversation, and to get very technical, I don't know if our flow increased or our relative percentage of the flow increased. Because we may have the same number or gallons or however they measure it versus a smaller overall flow. So say there's no net change in Garwood, let's just say that that's the case. Somebody has Merck move out of their town, their flow goes down drastically.
Right.
Our relative flow goes up, even though our numbers are still
Right.
the same. I think that may be part of it. We talked specifically about this, that the top line budget keeps coming down, and they're congratulating themselves as they should.
Right.
But our real question, where we always grit our teeth, is what's our relative portion of that decreased budget? So I wonder if it's not just absolute increases, if it's a relative increase to other towns. That's really the question, and that's the thing that's so bedeviling, because we're not the only ones that are changing or staying the same.
Right.
Everyone else around us is doing the same thing. So that's just to add another
Definitely.
piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that was the Clark Gypsum Board, about 5 years ago, that issue actually did come up.
L'Oreal.
Yeah, L'Oreal.
The problem that you have, the main problem is that the system's measuring capabilities they're not precise. So, the meters, for example, I don't know what they're supposed to be now, but they have a tolerance, and they're not accurate. It's not like your watch or your speedometer or something like that, and they're off. So we have a pipe that comes in, we have a pipe that goes out, and a meter at each end. If you have a 5% discrepancy at each end, that could be a difference, not of 10%. You don't add them together, because it's the difference in what is going through Garwood and what they're measuring could be 100%, it could be 200%, it could be 50%. It's only that the meters at either end have a tolerance. That's one problem. The second problem is, for example, with respect to BODs, those are not constantly measured. They do grab samples. So you could have one, a sample, and they don't do it that often. You remember what, it was like quarterly? isn't
Well,
it
it's
done?
more than that, but it's,
It's not that often,
Maybe
so you
once
get
a
one,
month.
you get one bad sample, and it's gonna throw off your quantity for the whole year. And Jim, your thought is actually good, but and you're absolutely correct, but I can assure you that the system hasn't, gone down by 17%. So, if our relative percentage has gone up by 17%. It isn't caused by reductions in flow in the system. I mean, I think it's just caused because there's no other explanation for it, just by the inherent imprecise nature of the measurement.
yeah, one business going down, even if it was a huge business, one business going down, that effect is spread over all the members. It's not just like we end up with all of it. So if somebody gets a reduction, yeah, everybody's that should go up a percentage, and maybe an equal percentage, not 17%, that's for sure.
But then even to add another wrinkle to it, aren't we talking about a change that occurred 5 years ago?
No, you're really affected only 20% a year, because you're averaging in the last 5 years. you drop the sixth year every year, so you only go back 5 years. So basically, every year, your flow is only affected by 20% of the system, not the whole
All right, to say it
100%.
went up by 17% just seems
That's
impossible.
huge, John.
That's the equivalent of 80%,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's right.
Yeah.
You could say that.
Because it's only the percentage over 5 years. I mean, something's radically wrong. I said this last year.
Yeah.
I had to say it
We
this
had a
year.
very,
You said
It's
20
just not, it's just, there's something wrong.
You said that 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I said it
that's right.
20
I was
years ago.
gonna say,
We've been talking about it for 20 years.
having unearthed some old correspondence in my office, this has been going on since day one, all these discussions.
And that's why I said it the last time, I mean, we could have our own, flow measures to go against theirs, that would help us out.
Well, the problem is, unless you did it at the same time they did it, because like Bob said, it's a graph sample. You're taking one 2-minute sample out of a month. You think about what the chances are that
Right.
that's an average sample for the month. Who knows what it is?
mhm.
I mean, at least flow, you're measuring the total quantity, but with the VOD, it's whatever they grab at that moment, that's what you're stuck with for that month. It's not a very good system.
It certainly looked like to me that each town almost took a turn each year getting hit really hard. But then, now we've been hit, this would be our second year, very hard. And it just leads you to wonder, what will happen going forward, so. At least, and I do agree, I would like to see our representative here more frequently. I think that would be positive, but, again, he is advocating for us, which is good.
What's
And
the,
then-
I'm sorry, what's the total amount money-wise in the increase?
About $90,000.
The problem is, it's almost worth suing over, but it probably isn't. I mean, by the
Right.
time we went out and hired a firm with expertise in that area and then get, some sort of a consultant and so forth.
Right.
By the time, and they'll litigate it to death, so I don't know.
Right. And, I think bottom line, this is why, first of all, I don't advocate this at all. I think one of the best things about Garwood is that we keep everything in the tax bill, but you can certainly see why so many other towns find it attractive to put something like sewer
Yeah.
outside of the tax bill, because with this fluctuation, very difficult, on the taxes. So, again, I don't advocate it whatsoever, but, you kind of see why other towns do that.
No further discussion on the stores. Are there any further questions or comments from the audience? There being none, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn the workshop session?
So moved.
Second?
All right, come back at 7:45.